Grace and peace, family. Are you someone who knows that you are living according to God's will, and yet you still cannot fully obtain the joy that's supposed to be yours, the peace that is supposed to be yours, and the love that you know is within the Lord's promise? If so, then this video is for you. Now, if any of the three things that I just mentioned fall in line with you, I'm going to pose a bit of perspective. The issue is not yourself. The issue is that you are still living worldly. Now, when I say worldly, I don't mean that you're living of the world. I mean you are living for the world. This means you are surrounded by people who have so many requirements on you, stipulations on you, and determinations as to who you need to be in order to please them and keep them around, that you in a sense are not living for yourself. You are living for them, which is why your own happiness, peace, and love is elusive. Now, as a reformed people pleaser myself, which at the time I thought I was people saving, I had to take a hard look at myself and the role I was playing with my own dissatisfaction in my life. I had to notice the areas where I was bending over backwards for family members who only valued me when I gave them all that I had and was left with nothing. The relationships that I allowed to steal my self-worth and my identity, only so that others could tell them how good of a partner they had so that they could ignore and refuse to see it for themselves. And of course, the friendships that I showed up for that promised me unconditional love and acceptance, but only allowed me to have it if I fit in the box that they created for me. This right here is not of the will of God. Galatians 1:10 says, "For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? For if I am seeking to please man, then I am not a servant of Christ." We are to serve mankind as Jesus did. But notice, besides going to the cross, Jesus did not bend over backwards. He did not overextend himself. He did exactly what he needed to do in order to help uplift mankind. He was still able to live his life. And that's what the Lord has for us. He wants us to live our life. He wants us to live through our experiences and to enjoy it, especially if he's giving you blessings and gifts on top of that. So understanding that no one can tell you how to live. No one can stop you from your destined path. And by telling people no and telling them that you will not do certain things, that is not a negative thing. It's called a boundary. And those are very important to set. The Bible tells you that setting boundaries is a form of protection against the enemy. Because remember, the enemy uses people. And what better way to keep a servant of God complacent but to use the ones that he loves to make him feel like you need to do more in areas that are not needed. Now, one practice that I took very seriously when it came to sorting out what needed to go in my life was I made a list of all the things I wanted for myself. Then beside that list, I put all of the things that were keeping me from it, every limitation that could possibly be. And then if it fell into one of these three categories, a need, a protective measure, or a hindrance, I now would sort. Protective measure and hindrance, they automatically would go. Now, if it was a need, I would now look a little deeper. Is that need for myself or is it for someone else? If it is for someone else, then it has to go. But if it is for you, decide if that need is worth it and then move accordingly. I'm going to leave this right here, guys. I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Love and light and peace.